Yes, I am.
Hello, it's 7:30. Please excuse all this. I've been up all night. Okay.
My son-in-law called me and texted me and said he'd come get the kids because he shot April, our daughter.
This is the frantic 911 call made by a devastated father on the night of May 19, 2014, after receiving a text message from his son-in-law, television actor Michael Jace, to come get the kids because he shot his wife. Within minutes, officers would arrive at a modest home in Hyde Park, Los Angeles, to find 40-year-old April Jace lying dead in a hallway, shot multiple times while her two young sons were just feet away. What drove a man who portrayed a police officer on television to become a cold-blooded killer in real life? To understand how this nightmare unfolded, we need to go back to where it all began, to trace the paths of two people whose lives would intersect in what seemed like a promising union, but would ultimately end in unspeakable tragedy. Michael Andrew Jace was born on July 13, 1962 in Paterson, New Jersey, and grew up in nearby Hackensack, where he excelled in high school sports. His path to acting wasn't the result of childhood dreams or dramatic arts training. Instead, it happened almost by accident during his college years when he watched his girlfriend rehearse for a play and thought to himself that acting looked straightforward. That casual observation would launch a career spanning nearly 2 decades. Jace's professional debut came in 1992 with an appearance on Law & Order. By 1994, he had landed roles in major films including Clear and Present Danger and Forrest Gump, where he portrayed a Black Panther member. His film credits would eventually include Boogie Nights in 1997 and the 2001 remake of Planet of the Apes. On television, he took on the role of boxer Mitch Green in the 1995 HBO movie Tyson, and even portrayed basketball legend Michael Jordan in a 1999 television film. But it was his role as Officer Julian Lowe on the FX series The Shield that would define Jace's career. From 2002 to 2008, he appeared in all 88 episodes of the police drama, portraying a devout Christian officer who grappled with personal demons. The irony of an actor playing a law enforcement officer who would later commit murder wouldn't be lost on anyone following his case. After The Shield ended, Jace continued working with a recurring role on Southland from 2009 to 2013, along with guest appearances on shows like CSI Crime Scene Investigation, Burn Notice, and The Mentalist. His last credited role came in 2011. While Jace was building his acting career, his wife, April Denise Lawn, who was born on May 6, 1974, developed into an accomplished athlete who would make her mark in masters track and field. April specialized in sprinting events and became a fierce competitor who loved the discipline required to excel at running. Her dedication to the sport would eventually lead her to join the Trojan Masters Track Club, where she competed in the over 35 women's category. In 2011, April achieved her greatest athletic triumph at the World Masters Athletics Championships in Sacramento, California, where she anchored the 4x100 relay team to a gold medal. 2 years later, in 2013, she would claim the Southern California USATF Championship in the women's 35 and over 100 meters and secure a silver medal at the prestigious Mount Sac Relays. At her peak, she was ranked as high as number 5 in the United States in her age group. But April wasn't just an athlete, as she was also a dedicated professional who worked as a financial aid counselor at Biola University, a private evangelical Christian institution in La Mirada, California, where she started in March 2013. Her co-workers at the university remembered her as someone who could make awful things fun somehow, bringing positivity to even the most challenging situations. She had a gift for helping students navigate the complexity of financial aid, and her genuine care made her beloved. Michael Jace had been married once before to Jennifer Bitterman from 1996 to 2002. That marriage produced a son named Jordan, but it ended amid serious allegations. Court documents from a 1997 filing revealed disturbing claims from Bitterman that Jace had threatened to kill her during disputes over visitation rights for their son. She also alleged physical abuse, including choking and hitting. When Michael and April married in 2003, it seemed like a fresh start for both. April brought her son, Savoy Brown, from a previous relationship, and together the couple would have 2 more sons, Nehemiah, born around 2006, and Caleb, born around 2009. From the outside, they appeared to be a typical family in the Hyde Park neighborhood. Michael continued his acting work, while April balanced her career at Biola University with her passion for competitive running and her devotion to her 3 sons. But beneath the surface, cracks were already forming. Jace filed for Chapter 13 bankruptcy in March 2011, revealing debts between $500,000 and $1 million. The vast majority were tied to the mortgage on their home in Hyde Park, and despite the bankruptcy filing, delinquencies continued into 2013. The financial strain was immense and constant, creating an atmosphere of stress and tension. The pressure of mounting bills and dwindling acting opportunities began to take its toll. Jace's last credited role in 2011 meant that by 2014, he had been essentially out of work for 3 years. For someone who had achieved a level of success and recognition, this slide into financial instability must have been crushing. And as often happens in relationships under extreme stress, he began looking for someone to blame. By early 2014, Jace had become convinced that April was having an affair, despite having no evidence to support his suspicions. He accused her repeatedly, sending accusatory text messages and confronting her with baseless allegations. April denied the affair because there was no affair to deny, but Jace's jealousy and insecurity had taken on their own life, fed by his financial failures and his diminishing sense of self-worth. April began to recognize that her marriage was beyond saving. She started talking about divorce, about finally ending a relationship that had become toxic. For a woman who had always been independent and strong, who had achieved success through her own dedication, the decision to leave would have been difficult but necessary. She was thinking about her future and the future of her 2 sons. But Michael Jace wasn't thinking about the future. He was thinking about control, about possession, about making sure that if he couldn't have April, he would make her suffer in a way that would hurt her most deeply. And because he knew her so well, because he had watched her dedication to running and understood how much it meant to her identity, he already knew exactly how he would do it. He just needed to wait for the right moment, a moment that would come on a warm spring evening when April returned home with her 2 young sons from a baseball game. April picked up her sons Nehemiah and Caleb from baseball practice, probably asking them about their game, listening to their excited chatter about plays and teammates. It was approaching 8:30 in the evening when she pulled into the driveway of their home on the 5400 block of Brynhurst Avenue in Hyde Park. She had no idea that her husband had been waiting for her, that he had spent the day sending her accusatory text messages while secretly positioning himself with a loaded revolver that belonged to her own father. Michael was drinking, fueling his anger and his sense of victimhood. Earlier in the day, he had sent April text messages claiming he was leaving the house, making her believe she would avoid another confrontation. But it was a lie, a calculated deception designed to catch her off guard. When April walked through the door with her 8-year-old son Nehemiah and 5-year-old son Caleb, Michael was there waiting, and he immediately directed the boys to go to their bedroom. The boy followed his father's instructions, taking his younger brother Caleb into their room down the hallway. But the wall separating the bedroom from the hallway wasn't thick enough to shield them from what was about to unfold. Through the doorway, Nehemiah could see his father grab his mother and pull her into the hallway near the boy's bedroom. Then came the first shot. April fell to the floor, wounded by a bullet to her back, but Michael wasn't finished. He stood over his wife and spoke words that would later be described by prosecutors as proof of his malice and his desire not just to kill, but to torture. He said, "If you like running, run to heaven." Those words, spoken by a man to his dying wife, represented the cruelest kind of mockery. He knew April's identity as a runner, knew that her speed and her dedication to track and field were sources of pride, and so he decided to target her legs, to shoot her in the very part of her body that had brought her so much joy. He fired once into both of her legs. After the shooting stopped, Michael Jace calmly picked up his phone and dialed 911. His demeanor was collected, almost matter-of-fact, as he told the dispatcher that he had shot his wife. He claimed his intent was not to kill her, a statement that would become central to his later defense, but which rang hollow given the nature of his actions. He told the operator where to find the gun and how to safely enter the home. Jace also sent a text message to April's father, Denny Lawn, with a chilling instruction: "Come get the kids because I shot April." Lawn immediately called 911 himself, his voice shaking as he tried to convey the horror of what he had just been told. Police arrived at approximately 8:30 in the evening to find April lying in the hallway with multiple gunshot wounds and Michael waiting calmly in the doorway, cooperative and composed. He was arrested early on the morning of May 20th on suspicion of murder, with bail initially set at $1 million. The investigation was straightforward because Jace had confessed immediately, both to 911 and to responding officers.
And we are live here in this community outside the home of Michael Jace, and you can see behind me that the crime scene tape is now gone. However, the sorrow in this community about what happened last night still lingers.
The neighborhood where the Jace family lived had no history of police calls to their address. Neighbors were shocked when they learned what had happened, and one neighbor recalled that the night before the shooting, the kids had been outside playing, and though there had been some arguing between Michael and April, it hadn't seemed unusual. The neighbor mentioned that April had left that Sunday night with the children and some bags. On May 22, 2014, Michael Jace was formally charged with murder by the Los Angeles County District Attorney. The charge included a special allegation that he had personally and intentionally used a firearm, an enhancement that could add 25 years to life to any sentence. His arraignment took place shortly after, where bail was set at $2 million, and a protective order was issued preventing him from having any contact with his two young sons. In the immediate aftermath, April's family rallied around the two boys, pledging to raise them and care for them in their mother's memory. Her mother, Kay Henry, spoke about how April had loved her children with a fierce love, and how the family's focus now had to be on helping Nehemiah and Caleb navigate an unimaginable loss. Biola University closed its financial aid office temporarily in her memory and established the April Jace Memorial Fund to support her family. But amid the grief, there was also anger and a demand for justice. April's family made it clear that they viewed her death as a senseless act of domestic violence. They wanted the world to know that April's death represented everything that is wrong with domestic violence. Nearly 2 years after April Jace's murder, the trial of Michael Jace began on May 23, 2016 in Los Angeles Superior Court under Judge Robert J. Perry. The jury consisted of 6 men and 6 women who could handle the difficult testimony ahead, including potential accounts from child witnesses and evidence of domestic violence. When opening statements began on May 24th, Deputy District Attorney Tanaz Mokayev laid out the prosecution's case with clarity. She described the events of May 19, 2014 as a really sad story of obsession and control, telling the jury that Michael Jace had been consumed by suspicions that April was having an affair and by rage that she wanted to end their marriage. The prosecutor emphasized that Jace's actions were not the actions of a man who simply lost control in a moment of passion. This was a man who had time to think, to plan, to position himself with a weapon and wait. Defense attorney Jamin Hicks took a different approach, acknowledging from the start that his client had killed April Jace, but urging the jury to focus on the why rather than the what. He argued that there was no evidence of premeditation, that the children's presence proved Jace hadn't planned this, that the shooting had occurred in a moment of emotional collapse. But it was the testimony that would truly define the trial. On May 25, 2016, 10-year-old Nehemiah Jace took the witness stand, and the courtroom listened in heartbroken silence as the young boy described the worst night of his life. He talked about coming home from baseball practice with his mother and brother. He described how his father told them to go to their bedroom. He recounted seeing his father grab his mother and pull her into the hallway and watching her fall after the first shot. And then he repeated the words his father had said before shooting his mother in the legs: "If you like running, then run to heaven." "Each time I have to see his face, even if it's from behind, it's really depressing," the older son from April's previous relationship would later say. The prosecution also introduced Jace's recorded police interview from the night of the shooting, and the jury heard him admit to the shooting while claiming he had only intended to wound April's leg.
But I thought it was important, and I hear that it's important for the family to know that I didn't commit first-degree murder. There was no premeditated anything.
In the recording, Jace described being just angry about what he believed was an affair and April's desire for divorce. He claimed April had lunged at him, prompting him to push her and then shoot. He expressed confusion about how many times he had fired, though the evidence clearly showed 3 shots. And when detectives informed him that April had died, Jace broke down, saying he had just ruined lives, 4 lives, and that there was no justification for his actions. Text messages presented at trial showed Jace's pattern of accusations in the hours before the shooting, his claims that he knew about the alleged affair, and his demands that April admit to what he believed she had done. There were also records of phone calls and his deceptive text claiming he had left the house. After all of the arguments and testimonies, the jury deliberated for less than 3 hours over 2 days before reaching their verdict.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Michael Andrew Jace, guilty of the crime of murder of April Jace.
On May 31st, 2016, they found Michael Jace guilty of second-degree murder, a middle ground between the prosecution's push for first-degree and the defense's plea for manslaughter. The verdict meant the jury had found malice, but had not been convinced beyond a reasonable doubt of premeditation. They also found true the special allegation that Jace had personally and intentionally used a firearm.
It was definitely a murder, and the right outcome happened.
Sentencing took place on June 10, 2016. Before Judge Perry announced the sentence, he allowed family members to speak. April's mother, Kay Henry, read a statement with a shaky voice.
I cry on holidays and I cry on her birthday. I cry on May 19th. My only daughter was shot and killed on May 19th, 2014, but we both died that night.
She spoke about worrying for her grandson's future, wondering when in their friendships they would have to reveal that their father killed their mother. Judge Perry then allowed Michael Jace to speak.
No justification for my actions that night at all. I'm profoundly sorry for the pain that I caused everyone.
But even in his apology, he continued to maintain that he hadn't meant to kill April, that there was no premeditation. Her mother and other relatives abruptly walked out of the courtroom during his statement, showing no interest in his explanations. Judge Perry sentenced Michael Jace to 40 years to life in prison, 15 years to life for the second-degree murder conviction, plus a consecutive 25 years to life for the firearm enhancement. It meant that Jace, who was 53 years old at sentencing, would not be eligible for parole until he was in his 90s.
For the personal discharge of a firearm causing her death, the court imposes a consecutive 25 years to life. The sentence imposed today is 40 years to life.
April's older son, Savoy Brown, spoke to reporters outside the courthouse, expressing relief.
Finally, he's getting convicted. Finally, it's less of a burden.
Since his conviction, Michael Jace has pursued multiple appeals, all of which have been unsuccessful. In January 2019, an appellate court upheld his conviction, but remanded the case for consideration under a new law that allowed judges to strike firearm enhancements. However, in June 2019, Judge Perry denied the request to reduce the sentence, calling Jace's actions so egregious that discretion would not be exercised. In April 2024, another resentencing petition was denied, and on August 5, 2025, a three-justice appellate panel rejected his latest appeal, stating that the record clearly established his guilt. Michael Jace remains incarcerated at California State Prison, Corcoran, where he will spend the rest of his life. The boys, Nehemiah and Caleb, were placed with family members after their father's arrest. Their lives have been forever altered, and while their circumstances are kept private, we know they are being raised by people who loved their mother. April's family established memorial funds to support the children's future. Let me know what you think about the sentencing in the comments section. Kindly click on one of the cards on your screen to see more videos like this.